What's up, everybody? I'm Flareman here, or Max. Back at Sponsor Speedway in the Porsche 911 GT3RS. We're here in drone mode really quickly. We're actually going to be showing off just how the track layout looks in this car. You'll see how we're kind of cutting in towards the inside, similarly to how you would be trying to take the lap in the GT3RS, which we'll get to in a little bit. But as we're here taking our laps, we're just going to look at a couple of the good points to notice here, especially with the fourth dimension. You want to use these cones on the inside as your apexes, and then just track out naturally with the banking of the corner. As we head into the gradual left-hander up to NordVPN bend, we're going to follow a similar line. You'll see the skid marks there for braking. Really fast through here. You do want to hug the inside and then gun it on the way out. Back onto the final straightaway here. Yeah, this is pretty typical lap. No traffic, surprisingly, during the drone mode run. But now we're going to hop in the car. We're going to take a look at a couple laps here, just to show both dig laps starting from a dead stop, but also laps of just going around the track constantly. So if we're ready to go here and we're done revving up, we should be going, and there we go. Heading into turn one from a dig, you really shouldn't have to lift off at all. You should be able to go full acceleration. I did not take the greatest line there. I kind of overextended, causing me to go out onto the dirt a little bit, but I did not lose a whole lot of time here. Keep in mind, train. I don't know why I kept that in. Yeah, we'll be all right. Yeah, the train is a problem on this track. It's kind of hard to pace yourself with it as well, so do keep that in mind. We are not necessarily going to be keeping these braking points as accurate, as we aren't coming up with full speed to these corners now. But now that the train is out of the way, we can get back to actual conversation about the track. You'll see in the gradual left-hander here, we're going to hit the brakes when we hit about 150 miles an hour. We're going to cut in real nice and sharp and then really accelerate out, use as much of the track as we can to get some big acceleration onto the final straightaway, because that can either make or break your lap. Every mile an hour counts. Hitting over 150 miles an hour here, top of sixth gear. You're going to brake right at the start-finish line cones. Keep it in fourth gear at about 100 miles an hour, sometimes a little less. And boom, we are right back out onto the straightaway just like that. The start-finish cones act as a really great braking point for turn one. I personally suggest using them. I find myself being able to go really fast, just like as we're using the end of the fence there as our braking point, and then trail braking again against the cones. You'll see I did follow the cones through the fourth dimension, and that gave me a really nice line to head straight into the fatbacks. If you do knock over those cones, don't worry, they'll respawn in a couple laps. Otherwise, you should have done enough practice, or you should know relatively where those cones are. They're in a pretty easy spot to figure out, which means that they will also be pretty easy to find, even if they're knocked over, so your braking point shouldn't be too compromised. Again, in the turn one, braking right at the start-finish cones. I actually hit a start-finish cone there, unfortunately. But we keep going onto the front straightaway. Still, you're going to hit about 160 miles an hour by the end of the front straightaway, which you'll hit the brakes right at the end of the second fence, right there, right where the dirt path is. Bam, and we're at 100 miles an hour, trail braking a little bit. I dropped it down to third. You really shouldn't have to, though. You should be able to keep it in fourth, keep it up in the revs as long as you rev match it. Keep it up in the revs about 7,000, 8,000 RPM in fourth gear through fourth dimension. Bring it up into fifth, drop it back down into third for this last corner. Then you're right back on the straightaway where you can regain all of your speed and get ready for the next lap. Again, avoiding traffic. That is really the biggest problem on this track. The train is not super frequent, so traffic is going to be your main concern. Again, we tip that corner at about 100 miles an hour, maybe a little less in fourth gear. Back up in the fifth gear now. We should be hitting about 160 before the fences. We might actually go closer to 165. Yes, we do. We use the cones as a marker point, really extending out there, using the brakes, taking that corner at about 105 miles an hour. If you really know your line here, you can carry a lot of speed and put together a really fast lap. Heading into NordVPN bend, the final corner. This one is less about a location to brake, more about your speed. I personally brake when I'm at about 150 miles an hour or the top of fifth gear. That means I can drop it down 2 gears into third at about 75 miles an hour, make the turn, and accelerate out into fourth, fifth, and so on. Again, braking at the start finish cones there. This lap was kind of bad because I went wide on that first corner. That kind of lost me a little bit of time. I had to focus more about getting back on track than accelerating out of the corner. But we still hit about 160 miles an hour before the second fence is braking in really nice and smoothly, kind of taking the grass inside line there, going kind of close to the inside, and we swing out super wide here. That can happen. You mess up the first corner, it can make it really hard to string together a good second corner. But back to this final corner, we're going to see some heavy braking here. Again, third gear, about 75 miles an hour. And because you're in about the middle of third gear, you're not really going to lose a whole lot of time from shifting into fourth, unlike if you were to do so in fourth dimension, bring it down to third, keep it at top of third, and then go to fourth instead of just staying in fourth gear. Now getting into some laps with track telemetry turned on. I figured I would include this because for people that are more analytical or want to see more of the numbers, this would help them get a better understanding of how the data actually looks while you're doing a lap. You'll see I'm just kind of heating up my tires here, hoping that they'll be more grippy because I did record this in the spring. So the track surface was wet from time to time. There were puddles on the straightaway. So that was just something to be conscious about. But we're off again. You'll see revving it all the way out to 9,000 RPM here, keeping it basically flat out into turn one, up into fourth gear here. This is a pretty similar lap to what we've seen without the telemetry. The telemetry is just really helpful for trying to figure out what you're actually looking at, what kind of data you're trying to get, how fast you're trying to go through each corner, what gear, RPM, all that sort of stuff. Like you saw when we braked into the first corner of the fourth dimension, we brought it down to fourth gear from 160 miles an hour. Heading into the final corner, you see we're revving it all the way out to 8,500, dropping it down to third, keeping it at about 6,000, top of 6,000 RPMs to 7,000, trying to get all the way out and extend that red line all the way so we can get the most RPM and wheel speed out of this thing possible. About 160 miles an hour at the start finish cones, 100% braking there. And you'll look at my steering. I'm not making super fast steering inputs. I'm really trying to be smooth with my steering, maybe scrub the wheel back and forth a little bit to keep the car on the racing line, keep it from sliding out under suspension compression. Again, braking into the fourth dimension quite easily. You'll see very gradual turns. I did have to counter steer a little bit because I was bringing a little bit too much speed in, but I didn't lose a whole lot of time for that. Still big accelerations here. We're going to head into the final corner, and I think this is where I'm going to leave you guys. Feel free to enjoy the rest of this last lap. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already. Like the video. Comment what cars you'd like to see next go around Sponsor Speedway, or what cars you would like a guide on how to go fast around here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Empty hearts and neon lights, they're playing with my mind. Gotta get out of here tonight. Oh, I wanna run off and fly, and I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking.